this is the main idea of my talk. Some small Dovecot introduction. And mainly I was thinking about talking about 2.0 and some new features in it. And then if there's, I guess there's some time, but after that something about new future features that 2.1 will have, maybe at least some of them. So if you still don't know what Dovecot actually does, it's primarily written to be an IMAP server, and it's completely optimized to be an IMAP server, as great as it can be, but it also can support all kinds of other protocols. Like I had to add some POP3 support, and since then I also added stuff like LMTP. That's new also in 2.0. And then there's also this sieve stuff for mail filtering, but yeah, I'm not planning on writing my own SMTP server. I think Vietse has done just fine with postfix. So most people don't seem to like writing IMAP servers. I don't know why. It's been difficult to get other people to contribute any code, so most of it has been written by me. I think the biggest patches from other people are, well, Apple sent a couple of big patches, but that's about it, I think. Well, the one exception is this pigeonhole sieve implementation. It's not written by me at all, but by Stefan Bosch. I don't know why he started it. I guess he likes writing that kind of code. And it's great that he started it, because I didn't have any interest writing my own sieve implementation myself. So I finally released 2.0 last year, and well, it took a while to get completely stable, but I think now it's in really good shape. And one great thing about 2.0 is that it's really simple to add more stuff to it. Like, for example, previously in 1 point something, the managed sieve implementation, you had to patch Dovecot to add the managed sieve to get all of that configuration and other stuff working there. But in 2.0, it's finally possible to create all kinds of new services. Like that managed sieve, there's no longer any need for any kind of patching. You just build it and install it, and everything works great. In 2.0, there's actually also the new, it's kind of related, the new master process rewrite. It's pretty similar, I think, actually to postfix, or at least some parts of it are really similar. And that's good. I'm kind of thinking that maybe in not so distant future, Dovecot would be ready or complete or something. There's only a few things left that I've been thinking, like in the core design. Like these, I have a few ideas about how to improve index files and how to do some other stuff, but I don't think they are going to take all that many years anymore. So at some point, I think Dovecot will be perfect, and then I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. It's already been almost 10 years. I don't know how long I can still continue doing it. But yes, okay, so last years I had been working for different companies in different countries, but this year I kind of wanted to go back to Finland, and Finland is a nice country. I like it there. A bit cold in winter, but still. So there wasn't really any companies who I could work for in Finland. No one really cares about email in Finland, I guess. At least a real email company or anything. So I finally decided last month that, okay, I'll just create my own company and let's see what happens. So now, well, actually, previously I was kind of already working for all kinds of companies. Like they just ask me to do something, and then they pay me. We didn't have any contracts or anything, but maybe this will make things easier. So if you want to buy Dovecot support or something, now you can finally do that. Yeah, I sell pretty much anything. So Dovecot, it's originally actually I thought that the most important point would be security, because all the other IMAP servers, I think I found security holes from all of my competition. It was a bit difficult with Courier, but I finally managed after a few years of trying. But it seems more people nowadays seem to care about high performance, because, well, at least those types of companies that usually pay me to do stuff. Because, well, they are usually some big ISPs and things like that, so they want to keep the cost of email as low as possible. So they want good performance and all kinds of other money-reducing features. Dovecot also works in a lot of different kinds of situations, like with all kinds of different storages. Or I've been trying to make it as configurable and as flexible as possible, so that if you want to run Dovecot somewhere, you probably can. And for example, it's possible to add new storages to, for example, if you are storing your emails in some proprietary SQL database or something, it's not difficult to add support for Dovecot to that. And of course, it supports all kinds of authentication methods from SQL or LDAP or whatever. And I've also been making it more and more easier to migrate from other servers to Dovecot. You can basically do completely transparent migration to Dovecot from pretty much any other server without the clients having to re-download mails or anything like that, or any flags getting lost or anything. So also, I've been trying to make Dovecot really administrator friendly. I've noticed that administrators seem to be a bit lazy people, so it looks like anything that can help them do less work is good for them. And also so in all the error messages that Dovecot gives, they are supposed to be something that they just should never happen. So if you log error messages to a different file, and I kind of recommend doing that, then you should be checking that file and seeing that if there's anything in that file that is not, well, okay, the only thing that should be in that file is if you stop Dovecot, it writes that killed by signal, blah, blah, blah. But everything else is something that really shouldn't be there. And all the error messages that are written there, I've tried to make them as easy to understand as possible. Mainly so that people wouldn't keep emailing me and asking, what does this mean? Well, I've already answered it hundreds of times, and it's annoying. So I keep trying to make the error messages simpler and simpler so that I get less mail and I don't have to talk to people. And yes, so it's also a lot of the errors that it finds. One possibility would be just logging it and doing nothing after that. But it seems like in some places, yeah, I've noticed that, well, yeah, the admins are lazy, so they don't really do anything until some customer complains that, okay, I can't read my email, and then they start figuring out, oh, okay, what's happening in error messages and something like that. But before that, I noticed that, okay, there was some error message coming hundreds of times a day, but no one really did anything about it, because it didn't really break anything. So I try to avoid those kinds of things by just fixing the problem so that it once logs the error and then fixes it. In 2.0, there's this new DovADM tool, and I'm trying to make everything happen using the Dove-ADM tool. You can also, if you want, you can add more plugins to it. So you can add more Dove-ADM commands. If you don't want to create yet another script, you could create Dove-ADM your script, and it would do stuff like something anyway. But Dove-ADM does basically everything. For example, previously with Mailser, a lot of people were using grep and mv and rm to move and delete and find mails and doing all kinds of mailbox manipulation. It works, and you can still do that also, but after some people started migrating to dbox mailbox format, the Dovecot's new Maildir replacement that's supposed to be much more efficient, it's no longer really possible to just play with the file system and delete files or anything like that, because, well, at the very least you will get some kind of error messages that, okay, now the mail got suddenly lost and what's happening, you just corrupted your mailbox or something. But so, okay, with Dove-ADM you have all kinds of commands. You can do basically the same stuff that you can do with those grep, mv, rm and other commands. Also, one thing with Maildir, I've noticed that when someone complains like, why isn't Dovecot seeing my new email, or why is something weird happening? I guess previously it was somewhat possible that, yeah, maybe it was because of the index files. And a lot of people nowadays also just say that if there's something wrong, just delete the index files and everything should be fine. But I don't know how often it actually anymore helps. But you can't, in any case, you can't do that with dbox anymore, because in dbox, for example, message flags, they are only in the index files. So if you delete the index files, then you no longer have any flags of any messages, and I don't think users will like it. So there's also this command force resync, which basically does what previously you would have done by deleting the indexes. Like, it just goes through the whole mailbox and makes sure that everything is exactly right. Then you can do all kinds of other stuff, like some people have written some weird scripts to delete messages from trash and spam and other mailboxes, so you can do that also with Dove-ADM. In this example here, you have the expunge from mailbox trash, any messages that were written or that were copied there 7 days ago. You can change that. That's kind of a search query there. You can give any kind of search query, like expunge from inbox all messages from this guy I don't like. And you can delete entire mailboxes, and you can, for example, move messages. The last example about moving messages to trash from inbox from Bob. You can also use Dove-ADM somewhat easily to do scripting. This is an example from the manual page. The first command line shows that, okay, search Bob's mails from work mailboxes with to-do subjects that are also not seen, and that command gives just a list of message. No, the first actually, it gives a list of mailbox global unique identifier number and then the message UID number. And you can just, for example, fetch those messages one at a time, or do whatever you want with those. I think that's somewhat simple way to do something similar that you previously would have done with grepping, or you can't really even do this with grepping that easily, I guess. Dove-ADM can be used to debug all kinds of stuff. For example, currently in Dovecot, the shared mailboxes are kind of slightly annoying to configure and difficult to debug. because there's several different reasons why it might not be working exactly as you think it is working. So maybe a few months ago I added this DovADM ACL debug, and you can give like as a parameter the mailbox name that you are wondering like, why can't this user read this mailbox or something. So the ACL debug command, it just gives a bunch of stuff about what's happening and what basically it will tell you, or at least tell me why a user can't read some mailbox. And you can easily test authentication with this or see what's in your user database. And if you ever thought about what does Dovecot's index files contain, you can also use the dump command you can give some index file parameter to it, and it will tell you that, okay, this index file contains this kinds of stuff in mostly human readable format, I guess. And some people just can't seem to find where the logging goes. Like when I try to help some people in IRC or somewhere, and then I say that, okay, it logs, check the log files, and there's nothing in the log files, and then yes, there is. There's nothing, and then nowadays I can just say that, okay, run the DovADM log find, and it will tell you where the logs are, and then the user, yeah, I see now, there the logs are. You can ask all kind of status stuff using DovADM. You can get a list of users who have connections, like IMAP and POP3 connections, and you can kick those connections based on the username or IP address or network range or combination of them. If you are running Dovecot proxy, you can do the same thing. Actually, this I only wrote about a week ago, I think, or something. But now you can also in the proxy see a list of connections and where they are from and what servers, what the destinations IP addresses are. And you can also kick those connections, not yet using IP addresses, but I haven't had yet time to add that. One thing that's missing here is that I've been thinking also about doing is DovADM top command, which would give a like kind of a top command output of list of users who are currently doing bad things in your server or eating all your disk I/O. So you could easily see that, okay, now this server is using this much disk I/O and it's because of these 3 users, and then you could maybe look into what they are actually doing, and okay, those users are doing these kinds of commands, and basically it would tell what's wrong, but I haven't yet done that. So yeah, it would be nice to get even like this specific IMAP search command for this connection is using a lot of I/O or something like that. And yeah, you can also see how much quota some users have or all users have, and if you don't think it's correct, then you can also tell Dovecot to recalculate that user's quota. Another new feature in 2.0, this single instance storage for message attachments. It's currently and probably permanently only supported by the dbox formats. It's actually, the basic feature is that Dovecot can save attachments in a different place. Based on these based on this attachment minimum size and this setting and also optional plugins, you can tell Dovecot that, okay, treat these MIME parts as attachments and these not, for example, because if user downloads the mail and if the attachment is stored separately, that's possibly an extra disk seek, which could be annoying extra disk I/O. So you might not want to store all the attachments separately, but for example, if your webmail shows all the pictures, images inline, then maybe you don't want to save images as attachments even if they are big. that's at least what some people thought that would be a good idea. So the attachments, there's this new kind of file system API in Dovecot. It's a really simple file system API. Doesn't have locking or anything. So the mail attachments are written using that simple file system API, and everything then depends on the backend. So, for example, if you already are using some kind of a, I don't know what, NetApp or whatever that can already do single instance storage, but you can kind of optimize so that the NetApp doesn't have to waste time trying to do single instance storage for the actual email part that never really have anything to deduplicate, but you could have like 2 different storages that, okay, deduplicate these attachments in this storage, but don't even try deduplicating these emails because there's nothing to deduplicate. So yeah, you can still use this mail attachment directory to tell just save the mails there and don't even try to, so that Dovecot wouldn't do deduplication, but your storage would do. So yeah, you can do that using the normal POSIX file system backend. But then there's also the other file system backends for Dovecot's own single instance storage stuff. Currently, both of these backends require to Dovecot really, I think it's good to be on the safe side and not trust that, okay, even if these 2 attachments have the same hash, SHA1 hash or something, then are they really the same? Well, yeah, it's highly likely that they are, but the current code doesn't trust that. It first does that, okay, yes, you have the same hashes, but do you really have the same actual byte by byte, same data? So the deduplication is done only after that check. And that's why there are these 2 different backends. Like the first backend is about doing that check immediately when saving the mail, and then there's the second, because if there's a lot of mail coming in, it might be pretty slow to do this kind of check. So you can use this sysq backend, and it will just write the mails, write duplicate attachments, but then you can do a nightly cron job that goes through those duplicates and sees that, okay, yes, this is a duplicate, and delete those. If someone really wants to, I guess I can add code to do so that it skips the byte by byte comparison and just trusts that, okay, your hash is the same and your file size is the same, so okay, it's the same attachment, but no one's yet asked me to implement that, so I haven't done it. It's also configurable what kind of hashing is used to do the quick check that if these are the same or not. The default, I think, the default is the SH, or SHA one, and you can also use all kinds of other hashes, and file size is also kind of a hash, I guess. And you can combine those in any way you want. It's part of the file name that is saved. Another new great 2.0 feature, desync. Desync can be used to backup mails or do mirroring of 2 mailboxes. They can be in same servers or different servers. You can use basically you can, as long as 2 desyncs can talk to each other in some way using standard input output, you can run desync through those. So there's this example. Well, the first one is there's only one desync process running in the same machine, but the second one is you can give SSH whatever commands and you can run desync from wherever. As long as they can talk to each other, they can do the synchronization. So yeah, there's those 2 modes. The backup is that if you have 2 different mailboxes, one is the actual source mailbox, which is backed up over that destination, and if there was any changes in the destination for whatever reason, like, I don't know, some mess up, then those changes get forgotten. Compared to rsync, one good thing about desync is that desync is always the mailboxes are always in consistent state, because with rsync, okay, if you rsync a mail dir, I guess that is fine also. It's probably also just consistent also. But if you go rsync Dovecot index files, there's really no guarantee that they are all that consistent, because it's created from multiple different files, and so it might rsync only like half of the old data and half of the new data, and then it's completely broken. But so the two-way mirroring of desync. You can actually just okay. So you can do, if you have two mailboxes, you can add mails to either both of them. For example, you can add changes, you can delete mails, you can change flags, and you can do anything to those two different mailboxes. I mean, they are at some point they would be the same mailbox, and then you could change them, and then run desync, and it would merge all those changes. So if you deleted message from one mailbox, it would get deleted from the second one, and if you added mails to both, then it would do some kind of it would add them to both. There's some problems with IMAP UIDs, because there can be conflicting IMAP UIDs, but those will get also resolved in some way. And if you actually want to do this, you really have to be running Dovecot 2.0, because if you are deleting mail from one mailbox, then it's kind of difficult to say that if you don't have any kind of indexing, then it's difficult to say that, okay, did you actually want to delete this mail, or is this a missing mail from this other side? So in 2.0, it adds some extra stuff to the indexes that tells desync that, okay, yes, you really wanted to expunge this mail and not add this mail. So desync can be used for many different things. Online migration, for example, between mailbox formats, or from one mail storage to another mail storage, or even between different machines or whatever. Everything works using this method. And so in this example, it's about how to convert mail dir to multi-dbox format without ever discarding any, or without ever giving any temporary failures to mail delivery or anything like that, and without, of course, losing any mails. So the idea is to first run the desync once, and if you have a lot of mail, it can, of course, take a lot of time. So after that one long time, if it did take a long time, maybe run again, so it would be most of the changes would be in the destination. So after that run, you should probably do all of this in a script, so it would be fast. So after this change this specific user's mailbox format from maildir to dbox, and so that the new incoming emails will go to mdbox instead of the maildir. But because, of course, it's still possible that there's some user connections using the maildir, or maybe a few more mails being delivered to maildir, then because of that you first kill all of the user's connections, and then wait maybe a few seconds to make sure that there's nothing anymore accessing the maildir, and then you do one more final desync that makes sure that if there still was some changes done to the maildir, those would get also transferred to the multi-dbox, and after that you should be done, and you should be able to delete the maildir. So basically that should work with any kind of mailbox migration or moving or anything. I've been thinking about doing this myself, because my company is small and poor, and I don't really have money to spend on expensive storage stuff, so I was thinking about just getting a couple of different virtual servers somewhere, and it wouldn't matter if one of them goes down as long as the other one doesn't go at the same time. So I was thinking that, okay, I would create 2 MX records, and both of them, 2 MX records for both of the mail servers, and both of the mail servers would be writing the mail locally, or even better would be, actually the one thing that I want is that, okay, so you get the data command, and then before the data replies okay, I want the mail to be in both of the servers already before the OK reply comes. So I would never lose any mail. But the idea is anyway that, you could I could connect to those, either one of those 2 mail servers using any IMAP client I want, or webmail, and I could do whatever modifications I want there, and then desync would be run. I was initially thinking that, okay, maybe once every 5 minutes. That's like probably not a good idea if you have a lot of users, but if I only have a few, then it's just fine, I think. But if I get annoyed at that, I guess I could create some plugin so that desync is run like immediately after a flag is changed or anything like that. So there wouldn't be any delays, and there wouldn't be any unnecessary desync runs. And one nice thing about desync is that it kind of assumes that the latency can be pretty high. There's, I think, normally like 1 wait per each mailbox or folder. So if you don't have a lot of folders, it should go pretty fast, even if the latency is high, and even if you have like 100,000 messages or something.
Sorry?
Yep.
Was this only a like 2-way multi-master, or also N-way, like 5 masters talking all to each other?
Well,
because you mentioned you set up a couple.
Yes, I think you could. I had been thinking about this before, and I think, it should be fine. Like if you have first 2 mail servers, you desync between them 2, and maybe you then add more. I think you could be adding more, but I guess there could be maybe some problems that I can't really think of now. But I think in theory, you should be able to have as many servers as you want. LB load balancer. In previously a lot of installations that were using, I guess, mostly Courier IMAP, they basically had a load balancer, and it more or less randomly sent the connections to different mail servers, which worked pretty okay with Courier, I guess. I think there probably would have been some random failures, but at least they weren't common enough for anyone to actually notice. But with Dovecot's index files, it gets much more easier to corrupt them, because NFS is kind of annoying. If 2 servers are trying to access or modify the same files at the same time because of some caching, and mostly because of some caching issues. I wasted a lot of time trying to make Dovecot work nicely with NFS by making it issue all kinds of, now you should flush your cache when this happens, and stuff like that. But it never really worked perfectly, at least. I was reading the Linux kernel source codes that NFS, how does its NFS client work, and then I found all kinds of things. So anyway, finally I just decided to give up. So then there's this new director idea, which at least makes it much easier. I think there might still be some possibility, if I changed the index file format in some ways, that it would actually work nicely with NFS, but I'm not sure about that. But so this director idea is that you have these directors, they are normal Dovecot proxies. And actually before director, some people did do that they had a bunch of Dovecot proxies and which were reading the configuration from SQL and saying that, okay, these users, like user A always goes to this mail server and user B goes to this and so on. So there wouldn't have been any problems because all of the users' connections go to this specific mail server, and so there wouldn't be any NFS caching issues because the other servers wouldn't be accessing the same mails at the same time. But this was kind of difficult because you'd have to put the users in SQL and decide which server they goes, and if this mail server goes down, then you would have to change the IPs in the database and so on. So I created this director idea. That it's still basically a Dovecot proxy, but instead of getting the destination mail server from database, it would be getting it from some in-memory tables. The in-memory tables are pretty much temporary. I think that currently it's like if one user, if a user connection, after user connection, after one user doesn't have any more connections, then it still waits some like 15 minutes, and after that 15 minutes it finally drops that user from memory. This works, I think, pretty nicely as long as the users don't have a lot of long-running connections. Or I don't know if it's really a problem even with long-running connections, but anyway, the basic idea is that when everything is working perfectly, like there aren't any server failures or anything, each director, it gets MD5 hash of the username, and based on that decides which mail server that user belongs to. This is nice because all of the directors can do that without asking the other directors where is this user right now, because everyone knows that, okay, everything is working okay, so if the user's hash is this, then it always goes to this mail server, and then after that it still tells the other directors that, okay, yes, this user, by the way, now is going here, but they don't ever have to wait any kind of replies that, okay, do you have this user going somewhere else because of some temporary server failure or anything like that. But so, okay, when there's some kind of temporary server failure or more permanent or something, then it becomes more complex because then the MD5 based, I think, yeah, the idea was that, okay, it take MD5 and then take modulo of the number of destination mail servers. So if that changes, then the destination server changes for the user. But that's not the common situation, and so the idea is anyway that, yeah, normally work really fast, and in cases of failure maybe a little bit slower, but still it should work fast enough. And well, the director is, I guess, mainly for these NFS people, but I think it's also useful for others who don't have NFS caching issues, but it might improve the performance with these all kinds of clustering file systems and whatever, because, well, that user's mails probably can be more, there's a better chance of keeping one user's mails in cache, in the operating system's own cache in memory, than if the same user is accessed from lots of different servers at the same time. But yeah, so if you have shared mailboxes, then it's a little bit problematic, of course, because if two users in different servers try to access the same shared mailbox, then it's kind of who should do that access. I have some idea how to handle that, but currently it's a bit problematic.
Do you mind a question?
Yep.
What about adding more complex configuration because we run an Nginx with a custom authentication module to do all kinds of crazy mapping, alias mailbox name mapping to the actual mailbox name, which the director cannot do currently. So are you planning on giving or making it possible to add custom code or a custom
I think
plugin?
it's kind of already possible because, well, I think you are kind of basically thinking what Dovecot proxy, non-director proxy, it already can do that because the Dovecot proxy just does pass DB lookup, and the pass DB lookup tells that, okay, proxy this user or this connection to this host. So that's the normal case. And if you want some special, you can keep doing that. Like you can write a script or whatever, pass DB plugin or something, and you can do whatever with it and it will go. And you can also combine director with the normal proxy, and it actually works like if the pass DB says that, okay, this user connection goes to this host, then it goes to that host. But if you don't really care where it goes, you just don't return the host. And then it goes to director, and then director sees that, okay, yes, this user should be proxied, but you didn't say where it should be proxied. So then the director decides internally that I'll just figure out where it goes. Yeah.
Why not hash over the mailbox name? Then you also wouldn't have a problem with shared mailboxes.
Because, I mean, two users, the mailboxes aren't, when you are logging in, you are only telling the login username. There's really no way to, like, two different users, user 1 goes here, user 2 goes here, but okay, they are, after the login, they decide that, okay, let's access this one shared folder somewhere. So the processes already exist in different servers. There's really no third place, or, well, actually the idea was anyway that I am planning on doing it like, because we could decide that all shared mailboxes would be accessed through IMAP, not directly through file system. So shared mailboxes would be accessed through director again. So then the director would decide that, okay, yes, you are accessing this shared mailbox, so go do it on that server.
Like a reference, IMAP reference? Or?
It's my next slides, okay. how they are going to work. Yeah.
Does the director only proxy the user sessions hop and IMAP, or is it always possible to the delivery path of the mail?
It supports also LMTP. So yeah, that's also important. So if you are using NFS, then you really, because yeah, the delivery also touches index files and also can create corruption if you have different mail delivery servers delivering mail to same user through different servers or stuff like that. So switch to LMTP. Anyway, the basic idea with this is that, well, it's pretty much looks like a normal Dovecot proxy, but it's not really a dummy proxy like normal proxies. Most of the IMAP proxies, including the Dovecot's actual IMAP proxy, they don't really parse the IMAP protocol at all. They just forward whatever commands, and maybe they might change some commands, but they do very little changing. But this accelerator is completely different. But yeah, the basics are anyway, clients connect to accelerator, which connects to your real IMAP server, which can be a Dovecot or Gmail or Exchange or whatever that even attempts to talk IMAP protocol. So the way it works is Dovecot can support lots and lots of kinds of different mail storage backends. So there's this IMAP-C, I call it IMAP-C backend. It's just another mail storage backend. Like instead of reading mails from Maildir, it connects to a remote IMAP server and reads the mails from there. So it's not only an IMAP proxy. the clients can talk to the accelerator using whatever protocol like POP3, and then the accelerator changes. The accelerator itself still talks IMAP protocol to the backend server. So this makes all kinds of new things possible for Dovecot that I think are interesting, at least to some people. Like here's one example. You could just maybe, for example, your real IMAP server is getting a way too high disk I/O right now, and you can't really redesign it to work in a different way. So maybe you could just plug in another Dovecot caching proxy or accelerator in front of it, or not in front of it, but like on the side of it. So maybe some users would go through proxy and maybe some wouldn't. But anyway, the proxy would be caching some of the index files locally, so it wouldn't always have to go through to the remote server asking that, please tell me what headers this user has, because they are already cached locally in the proxy. So I guess it's in a way master-slave load balancing, because the real IMAP server is doing all the writes, but the proxies can do some. The proxies can handle the reads at least, if they are already cached. And it would be possible to make, like, it could cache the mail bodies and everything, like, and it could already pre-cache stuff, like, so if you deliver a mail, it could deliver it to the real server, but also at the same time put it to the proxy's cache. Most IMAP servers aren't very RFC compliant. I'm not really sure if any IMAP servers are RFC compliant, because it's so difficult. I think there's between 0 and 3 IMAP servers that are 100% RFC compliant. I don't think Dovecot is. I'm not really sure. Well, it can be open to interpretation. So anyway, there's in Finland there's this one university where the researchers people, they are old people and they want to use the old mail clients. I don't know if it's Pine or whatever, but that university, they switched to Exchange, and that broke those. Yeah, so most of the people were happy with that change, at least the administrator people were happy, but so the researchers people, they couldn't keep using their old email clients. So they stopped using the expensive mail server that, I don't know what they use. Maybe they use Gmail or something else, I don't know. But they don't use the university's own email. So I know the administrator guy, and we were talking about it once, and then he started thinking, yes, maybe we should put this Dovecot proxy there so that the researchers could start using our email by connecting the old clients to Dovecot, and then Dovecot would be talking to Exchange. And they tried it, and it seemed to work pretty well. They found some bugs, I think, but well, everything happens slowly in universities, I think so. I don't yet know if they are. I think they are going to start using it after I fix maybe something. So this is another idea, a bit similar. I know there are some big companies, I think Nokia is one, who is using Exchange and don't want it exposed to unprotected internet, because they think people are hacking in and reading emails then and something like that. So then there's a lot of people who can't have email in their mobile phones or whatever, because they don't have VPN access, or maybe some VPN client doesn't even exist for that phone or something. So I don't know, maybe Dovecot could be more trustworthy than whatever email server those people are using, because, well, you can make Dovecot into a really, really secure sandbox in a way that even if there's a security hole in Dovecot, all that the attacker could get is like pretty empty CH root somewhere. Well, maybe there's some Dovecot index files there, but they can't at least directly access another user's emails in any way. So they would at best get like now a chance to attack, well, either the operating system kernel or the backend email server or something like that. But I don't know, I will have to see if someone thinks this is a good idea. And this is why I initially implemented this. One guy wanted this PGP, transparent PGP support for all clients. Like this could allow you to keep using whatever email clients, and you could PGP encrypt all the mails and still store all the mails in, for example, Gmail or something, other cloud thing. And you, of course, and now you don't really have to even trust that the Google doesn't read your emails because they are all encrypted, and only the Dovecot proxy has the PGP keys to decrypt stuff. So, because this IMAP-C backend is yet another backend that also desync can use, this means that you can now migrate to Dovecot perfectly using this combination from any IMAP server, any other IMAP server, and it preserves all of the metadata that there exists, so that the clients don't have to re-download the mails, which would normally happen if you use some like IMAP sync or something to do the conversion. Currently, it only uses really simple IMAP commands so that Exchange can understand it, and like it basically acts like an Outlook. It seems like all the IMAP servers can talk to Outlook, but not necessarily to anything else. So this is really simple. But it of course means that if you are, for example, searching for emails or sorting some emails, then it has to download. Well, if you are searching for message body, it will go and download all the message bodies from the mailbox and then do the search locally. So that's not maybe very optimal. So optionally, well, it would be possible also to add full text search indexing to that proxy. So yeah, so it should download. It would download all the mails once, but not after that anymore. But yeah, it still would be nice to optionally at least support more complex IMAP commands if the remote server supports them. Well, at least it would at least be useful if the remote server is Dovecot or some other that talks IMAP protocol well. So the proxy, it doesn't do anything special. It uses the same index and cache files as everything else in Dovecot, like MailDir and dbox, and everything uses the same index cache code. It's the same with this IMAP-C stuff. I've noticed at least that connecting to Gmail and giving a command and before getting the reply back, it's pretty long time, maybe 200 milliseconds or something. So there's now possibility to do this kind of prefetching, so that there wouldn't be like 200 or 0.2 second wait and then next command 0.2 second wait. Like that would be annoying. So Dovecot also can send, like it can start processing the future commands already while waiting for reply for the previous one. So there's this kind of prefetching, pipelining stuff, which hopefully makes it fast enough to actually work with remote IMAP servers. And while I already implemented this, it was a bit complex. Then I thought that, yeah, okay, so since I already did this, maybe it would work nicely with local storage also, because at least in Linux there's this one syscall which you can use to tell a kernel that, okay, I want to read this file soon. So I would be interested in knowing if this setting actually does something useful for people. Especially with Maildir, I guess the idea is like Dovecot can say that, okay, I'm going to need these 10 emails very soon to kernel, and then kernel can decide internally that, okay, yes, maybe I should just read this stuff first, and then this like reorder the stuff and take less disk seeks to do the stuff. Yeah, in future, more complexity, more performance, hopefully. And then a little other stuff still. People seem to be wanting to move to these key value storages and other cloud thingies so that they could scale infinitely, or whatever. So, yeah, I guess it's kind of nice would be that you could just keep adding more servers and wouldn't have to worry about anything. So the nice thing is that with all this IMAP-C work, I've already done all of the hard work, because usually these kind of storages seem like they have also high latency. And so it would be good to send a lot of commands at once without just waiting for replies all the time. So I think this makes implementing key value storage support to Dovecot hopefully easy. Yeah, so I guess there's a little bit more time, but I was thinking about using this debug format based key value storage stuff based on debugs probably, or something. The main idea anyway is to create some kind of mailbox format that works using this file system API that was also used to write these mail attachments. And yeah, it's a really simple API. You can just create files and append to files atomically, but there's no locking or overwriting data or anything that makes it difficult to implement the file system backend. So it's a little bit difficult, I guess, to actually create a mailbox format that works with all these restrictions, but I think I have figured it out how to do that. Well, those are some plans. And if you happen to have some kind of SQL storage that you would want Dovecot to access, it's possible by paying me or doing it yourself, whatever. It was really simple. It was much easier than I thought. I was asked to do this read-only inbox reading from one SQL table, and I thought, well, I guess it will take at least a little bit of time, but then I started thinking that, okay, let's see how much time it would take if I implement this, and then 2 hours later it was like, oh, it already works. There was some bugs still, but pretty small bugs. So it's easy to do all kinds of stuff to Dovecot. Yep. More questions. Oh, this is a picture of a Dovecot, real Dovecot. From Wikipedia.